Game dev journey. Right, now we need to update these values using a script. So we're going to have to add a script to the HUD node by clicking on the little scroll with a plus. Make sure our template is empty and it's calling it HUD, and click create. And this is going to be our HUD script. Now, we need a signal to start the game. That's what we were looking for in our previous area. So we need a signal for start game. And then we need a function to update the score and a function to update the time. So we'll say function update score with a value. And we'll go to our margin container. So margin container, and we'll go to the score label, and we'll change its text to whatever that value is, the string version of that value. Now we'll have a function to update the time, or the timer, also with a value. And again, we'll go into our margin container, we'll go to our time label, .text, and we'll make it the string version of that value as well. So they both work in the exact same way. Now, the main scene script will call these functions to update the display whenever there's a change in value. So for the message label, we also need a timer to make it disappear after a brief period. So we don't want the title of the game to stay there the whole time while you're playing the game. We need it to display and then disappear. So we're going to add a timer node to the HUD. So we'll grab a timer which we've used before, and let's call this the message timer. Which is going to time out. So over here, it's wait time. We could set that to say 2 seconds, and it's going to be a one shot, which means once it times out, it doesn't fire again. So the timer will only run once. Now for our show message function, let's add a message to show let's add a function to show that title of the game. We'll call it show message, and the message is some text. So what we'll do is we'll go to the message label, and we'll set its text to whatever text we want to display. We'll show the message label, so we'll call it show function, and then we'll start the timer. So we'll say message timer start. Okay, so the message timer will start. So essentially in this function, we're going to display the message, start the timer, and then just to hide the message, when the timer times out, we must hide the message label. So what we can do is on the timer, we can go to the node, find its timeout, and we just connect it. And so when that message timer times out, all we do is hide the message timer. So we'll go message label dot hide. Okay, so once the timer times out, and it will time out after 2 seconds, the title of the game will disappear, or whatever our message that we want to display is will disappear, because we can also put game over there or whatever. Okay, so now we want to get some buttons. So we're going to add a button node, and we're going to call it start button, because it's the button that's going to start the game. So let's type start button. Right. So this button is going to be displayed before the game actually starts. And when you click it, it'll hide itself. It'll send a signal to the main scene to start the game. So its text property should be something like start. So if we type here start game or start, whatever it might be, and we should maybe make its font the same font as our our heading. So if we pull in that pirate font and maybe make it 20, we will have start game with this pirate font written on our button. Okay. Now, where should the start button be? Well, let's go to at the moment it's up there. Let's go to our layout and put it in the center. So it's right here in the center, but maybe it should be at the center bottom. So let's go center bottom. So there's our start button. So let's just press up until we get it to a position we like. So there, that looks like a good spot for the start game button to me, right? And we could change the margins if we like. We could play around with that, but it looks okay to me. All right, so now when this button is clicked, we're going to send a signal to start the game, right? So if we go to the start button and go to its node, when it is pressed, right, we want to connect this pressed signal to notify our main scene that the game should start. So we want to emit a signal, right? So we can connect this right over here, and we can put our code in. This is what's going to happen when they press the start button. We're going to hide the start button, so we're going to say start button.hide. So start button hides away. We can immediately hide the message label, and then we must emit our signal that we created at the top here, start game. Okay, we're emitting a custom signal. So we're going to say emit signal. There it is, start game. Okay, emit signal, start game. So our heads up display, our HUD, is going to emit the signal start game. It's going to notify main that it's time to start a new game. So now the final task for our user interface is to react to what happens when the game ends. Okay, so we actually need a function for game over. So let's make that. So let's say function show game over. And what we want to do for game over is we want to show a message, game over. So we're going to say show message, and our message is game over. Then we're going to wait a moment. So we're going to yield, and we're going to say message timer. So we're going to wait 2 seconds. We're going to wait however long that message timer runs for, which we now know is 2 seconds. So we're going to wait for it to time out. And then we're going to show the start button. So we're going to say start button dot show, because now you can restart your game. We're going to reset the message to treasure hunt. So we're going to say message label dot text is going to be equal to treasure hunt, and we then want to show that message label. So message label dot show. So that's what happens when the game ends. We show them the game over, the words game over. We let them see it for 2 seconds until our message timer times out. We then show the start button again, change the message to treasure hunt, the name of the game, and then show the message, show that name of the game, show the message label. Right, so now we need to connect this heads up display or make it part of our main scene. So let's save it, Control S to save it as HUD, that's fine. Now we're going to come back to our main scene over here, and we need to set up communication between the main scene and the HUD. So we need to add an instance of the HUD to the main scene. So we're going to click on a chain. You can either click on the chain here, or we could just drag the HUD scene in. I'm going to go the graphical route and connect it. So now HUD is like a custom node now that's part of our main scene. And now what we need to do is we need to connect the timeout signal of the game timer. So let's go and find it. There it is. So let's connect it. So the game timer is here. And what we're going to add is when the game timer times out, we want to reduce time left by 1. We want to update the timer. So we want to go $game timer. Oh, this is actually the HUD. We must update the HUD's timer. So it'll be HUD.update timer to time left. And then we want to say if they don't have any time left. So if time left is less than or equal to 0, then we want to call our game over method. All right. Now, every time the game timer times out, so every second, the remaining time is reduced by 1. Now we need to be able to pick up coins, and game over is in our HUD method. So this should be HUD.gameover. So $HUD.gameover. Because there's no game over in this class. Right, so now what we need to do is to connect the pickup and hurt signals of the player. So we need to click on the player and find our custom signals. Here's hurt and pickup. So let's start with pickup. So let's connect pickup. So when this pickup signal runs, we want to, it means they've collected a coin. So we need to add 1 to the score. So score is going to equal 1. They've collected a coin. And we need to update the score in the HUD. So we need to go $HUD.update score with the current score. So that's what happens when you pick up coins. Now in our case, we're just going to make it so that if you hit an obstacle, you die. There's no incremental things. So if you don't avoid the obstacle in this game, you just die for now. All right. So we're going to connect the hurt node of the player. What's going to happen when you get hurt is we just call game over, and we're going to make that method. It doesn't exist. We're going to make it. So function game over. Right. So what happens when the game ends?